Hello, what we're going to be covering in this video is the lab for 4-2. So the lab is the app event count. And the objective of this lab is to create an app that provides a visual representation of the app lifecycle. Your app will update labels on the view when different delegate methods are called. So again, what we're going to do, like we covered in the lesson, the app anatomy and lifecycle lesson, is we're just going to go through and update some values in some labels when each of the lifecycle events occur. So in order to do that, the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to go into Xcode, and let me go ahead and create a new project, Xcode project, and it'll be a single view app. So I'll just click on next, and what they want us to call it is app event count. So I will just go ahead and open up, update the name, and click on next, and I'll just go ahead and install it on my desktop. Okay, so let me see here. The app event count is ready to go. The one thing they do mention is they want the device family to be universal, so that is set by default. So let me just go ahead and expand this. Well, let me shrink it back down and see what we need to do next. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our view and our view controller. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 6 labels to it and then set some constraints for the label. And then we're going to go ahead and create 6 outlets, and we're going to create 6 variables that will go ahead and keep the count of how many times each one of the methods in the app delegate class is called. And then we're going to make an update view method that's called in our view did load. That'll go ahead and update the text in each one of those labels with the number of times that app delegate method has been called. So let me just go ahead and minimize our textbook here. So the first thing, I'll go ahead and maximize. We'll go into our main storyboard. And once that comes up, my view controller shows up. The one thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and update the background color for my view controller. So let me just go ahead and change that to a color that I've used in the past. So I'll just go ahead and use a light blue color. So what they mentioned is that we want to go ahead and add 6 labels. So I'll just click on my object library and drag a label down into the view controller, and then I'll just go ahead and click on Control C and Control V 5 times. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we have 6 labels that have been added. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place them into a stack view. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and left click on my mouse and select all 6 labels. And once I've done that, I'll go down below and embed them in a stack view. So I'll just click on Embed in Stack View. The next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and set up some constraints. So I'll go ahead and make sure that alignment and distribution is set to fill. I'll go ahead and set my spacing to 10, the spacing in between the labels. And then what I need to do is I need to go ahead and set up some constraints. So as long as I have my stack view selected, I'll go ahead and first click on my alignment constraint, and what I want to do is I want to go ahead and center the stack view vertically in the container. So I'll just go ahead and select the last one add that constraint to it. And then the other thing I need to do is I need to constrain the left and the right side of my labels. So I'll just go ahead and click on the Add New Constraints button down below. I'll go ahead and select my left, and I'll add a constraint of 8. And then I will go ahead and select my right, and I will add a constraint of 8 there also. And then the other thing I want to do is I need to go ahead and I need to change the lines properties. So what I've done is I've selected all of the labels, and I'm going to go ahead and change that property to 0, and then I'm going to change the alignment to center. So now each one of our labels, if there's text that will not fit into the label, it'll go ahead and print out on the next line. So I've set up my labels. They're constrained in a stack view. So the next thing I want to do is I need to go ahead and add my outlets. So let me just go ahead and click on my assistant editor so it pulls up my view controller on the right. I'll go ahead and delete that information, and I'll add a couple of spaces here. And then what I need to do next is I need to go in and add outlets for each of my labels. So I'll just go ahead, select my first label, Control drag, and then what we're going to call that first outlet is did finish launching. And I will go ahead and click on connect. So if you go ahead and add a label and an outlet to that label, and if you need to make a change to the label, the easiest way to do it is to go ahead and actually select the label name within the outlet, right click. Let me go ahead and make sure I have everything selected. I'll right click, and then you click on refactor and rename. And what this will do is it'll show you everywhere within your app where that label is being used. So basically it's in my outlet, and then it's also in the outlet that appears on my main storyboard. So what I'll do is I'm just going to add the LBEL to it and click on rename. And if I click on the rename button, the label has been updated. And then if I go ahead and select that label and look out, it's actually gone in and updated my referencing outlet too. So if you ever need to update the name of an outlet that you have set up, and you want that change to be applicable to everything that's using that name, you would just go ahead, like I showed you, select the name itself, right click, click on refactor, and then you would go ahead and type in your new name and make sure that that change is applicable to all of your labels or all of the places in your code where that name is being used. So what we're going to do next is we're just going to go ahead and select my second label, Control drag, and we're going to call it will resign active label, and click on connect. And we'll click on Control drag. The next label, that will be did enter background label, and we will click on connect. I'll go ahead, Control drag on my next label, and what we're going to call it is will enter foreground label, and click on connect. Then I'll go ahead and I'll make sure and Control drag, and I'll update my next label, did become active label and click on connect. And then finally I'll control drag on my last label and we will name it will terminate label, and we will click on connect. So we have our labels added. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to create 6 variables that'll keep count of how many times each one of the app delegates methods have been called. So the first variable will be for the launch count. We'll set that equal to 0. So that'll get updated each time the app is launched. Next one will be resign active count. We'll set that equal to 0. Next variable will be enter background count. We will set that equal to 0. Add a new variable called enter foreground count. We will set that equal to 0. Go ahead and set a variable for become active count. We'll set that equal to 0. And then finally we'll go ahead and set one for our will terminate count equal to 0. So now we have the variables to count each of our app delegate methods to keep track of those. So the last thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and create a function called update view. And what we're going to do then is we're just going to update each one of the labels. So did finish launching label dot text. And what that is going to equal to is the app has launched, and we'll go ahead and add our launch count variable times. And then what we need to do is we need to add some additional information for each time that we go ahead and to update each one of the labels. So I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to go ahead and add that additional code. Okay, what I've done is I've gone in and added the rest of the code under the update view method, our function. So basically we're setting the did finish launching label equal to the app has launched with the launch count, number of launch counts. Will resign active labels set to when the application will sign active has been called, and then so on and so forth. Enter the background label. We specify what label it was and then the count for that. Enter foreground count, become active count, and finally will terminate count. And then the last thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and call that update view function from our view did load. So that's what I wanted to cover in part 1 of the video. So what we're going to do in part 2 of the video is we're going to go into our app delegate class, and we're going to add some code to there so we can keep track of how many times each one of our app delegate functions get called.